Could I invite all our presenters up onto the stage now? This is going to be the Q&A session. We probably have about 6 minutes or so for questions. I think we have 5 presenters and 4 chairs, but we'll make it work somehow. Oh, good, thanks. Please, have a seat. Sorry? Oh, great, fantastic, wonderful. Please. Andy. Good. Do we have some questions from the floor or from our online attendees? Do I see any questions?
The runner is doing a bad job of running.
Thank you. My question's mostly for Mandy. I'm really interested in the WhatsApp community leaders group, and we've recommended similar things to our clients before, and come up against a bit of hesitation in terms of losing control of the narrative. So interested if you had that experience and how you managed that.
Does that work? All right, thanks. Yeah, look, to be honest, I think, government can be quite risk averse. I think we would have really struggled if we weren't in a global pandemic and people were really looking for solutions that we didn't already have. Having said that, it was still a bit of a process, as you can imagine. I think for me, I'm always trying to do new things and try new things, and I've learned the best way to get that across is to accompany it with a risk mitigation plan. I think people are always worried that you come up to some new thing but you haven't really thought about the impacts or what could go wrong. Everyone's always, and particularly providing control to the members to be able to post anything. That could be screen grabbed and shared with media, and that could be really bad. But we just outlined a really detailed process when it's going to be monitored, what we would do if it was we categorised the nature of, how bad was the post in terms of was it just critical, or was it inflammatory, or was it, going to cause a major drama? And so we had different categories for what types of post and the steps we would take once that was posted, the time frame we would turn it around, who it would be escalated to. And you do have some control in WhatsApp in that we made it so we were the only moderators, we could remove members. So that was a control we had. You can't remove posts, interestingly, and even the people who have posted can't remove it after 2 minutes. So even if they write something and then actually I posted to the wrong group, that did happen a couple of times, they can't actually delete it if it's not within 2 minutes. So that is something you have to manage. But yeah, the risk mitigation plan was really key, and just everyone having a comfort level that we knew what we would do if things went out of control. I can tell you we had to remove 1 member over that 2-year period because they were repeatedly posting political content, which in our guidelines very clearly stated that is not allowed. So we gave several warnings, kept doing it, removed him from the group, and I think the rest of the group sort of celebrated. They were quite happy about that. He never pushed back that he got removed because it was very clear that he was breaking the rules, and we had given him warnings. And then that's the only thing that happened in the 2+ years. So it's a good case study now that we can show with other government departments about how they can potentially do it.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Hi, thank you. They were great presentations, all of them. I'm just sitting with the unconscious power dynamic that can sometimes present in these relationships with client and treating physician or service provider. What are some of your experiences with that? Can you talk a little bit about that, how you might overcome or acknowledge those?
Who'd like to take that on?
I can talk. Oops, apparently. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's always something that, particularly when we're training new staff too, in whatever program I've been in, is to be really conscious of the power dynamic and where you place yourself, even really basic things like placing yourself in the room, not making it feel like an interview room. So the environment has to be really feel really safe in order for people to be able to feel comfortable enough to be able to tell the story, because what a privilege for someone to be able to come to you for support and say, you know, this is what's happened. And particularly if it's the first time they've ever spoken about it, you want them to feel really safe to know, you know, we're going to hold that space. You know, this is the safety plan. We're going to walk with you. There's absolutely no telling you what to do. You've got your own agency. You know, what do you want to do?
And I might just... Is it on? Hello? Oh, there you go. I think the other thing I'd add is some of those guiding documents that I sort of showed on my first slide. When you're sort of inducting in staff, it's often about having open, or volunteers and board members, everything. It's about having those open conversations about power dynamics, so it's understood from sort of get-go that power dynamics exist and how do we think about them. And then there's also, more recently, there's been sort of, as these spaces continue to evolve, I think there's been much more realisation in the sector around lived experience and having a staff that reflects the cohort you're working with, and making sure that you're recruiting from a greater diversity. Your staff and volunteers reflect the communities you're serving and working with as peer workers. So you've got sort of, you know, that starts to break down some of those barriers naturally within the organisation as well. But I think a level of consciousness about power from the outset is really important to helping break it down.
Is there another question?
Khalil. I will come and read a question from the chat. Okay.
Oh, I think there's an online.
There's an online question, so, oh gosh. Okay. I've got the right glasses on. The Red Cross stories are truly inspiring, such great work. My former question somewhat resonates here again. I totally advocate strengths-based as a social marketer, but I can't help wondering, are we only focused on appealing to the bright and shiny when there is real grief and heartache? Some of the insights that we've gathered also appear to alienate some of the people we are trying to walk alongside, e.g., when we focus on the success and resilience of an FDV survivor, how do we deal with those women that just feel like her world can't be changed, and that those stories are the lucky few, not her? Something I've been struggling to think about for some time. I appreciate the wisdom of all on the panel, all in the room. So, there's a challenge for you.
Zane, would you like to address that?
I guess I'll start here by saying that sometimes a story has to do a lot of work in 20 to 100 words, and you don't get all of it. I think the way, when you have the space to explore a story, the questions you ask of that survivor, the way you might work with that person to reflect on their experience, the advice they might have to offer other people, all of that is important as part of the story. And I think one of the challenges that we definitely wrestled with was trying not to sugarcoat a crisis. And, you know, you can go back and forth with language a lot and go, okay, well, we're not going to talk about crises anymore, and we're not going to say the word homeless person, but it's not really that simple. You can't change intent by changing homeless person to person experiencing homelessness. You find a different way of framing that situation. And it's very organic, and you won't always get it right. And so whoever said that out there, thank you for constantly keeping that in mind and constantly challenging us and saying, okay, have our stories been going too much this way? Do we need to come back? What are we missing? And just continually looking for that.
And the thing I think I'll add as well is, you know, some of the stories we were doing at Red Cross were about really intractable kind of long-term crises, challenges, problems from either wars and conflicts overseas through to work we were doing to support, you know, asylum seekers who'd been on really sort of long and protracted journeys for sort of safety and, you know, to find a place to, you know, settle and to live a safe life. it was not glossing over all those challenges, not glossing over the hurdles that they'd experienced, and not in the same way I showed the white saviours we equally didn't want to sort of, as that sort of question from online shows, we didn't want to sort of show, magic bullet, this is all just solved easily, because some people are doing it really tough and experiencing multiple setbacks and multiple vulnerabilities, and it's about paying respect to that, but equally still paying respect to the agency, the resilience that these individuals have, and to, depending on, again, Zane says, what your story's for. If your story's to other clients, it might be, or other participants, it might be about showing, hey, here's some services and programs that are happy to walk alongside you and help you. Or if it's to donors, here's how your resources could help us continue to walk alongside and support these individuals. So it's not about glossing over all that, but it's just about the really respectful way of telling those stories.
I'll just add as well, we had a bit more freedom in COVID, I think, but we really were able to sort of hand over that storytelling to the community in some instances by funding organisations like Multicultural Arts Victoria, who set up Ahead of the Curve program, it was called, for people of colour to share their experience of the pandemic, good or bad, essentially, through art. So it was short films, podcasts. They had different categories for more established artists versus emerging artists who got to work with more established artists on a group project. And it was, we saw the outcome. We were completely removed from that process. We had no control over what the outcomes were, and we just saw that the final products, essentially. And so there was, podcast discussions, and people were coming together to talk about their struggles, which I think was a really great experience for the people involved. But I am conscious that's not always a possibility to be able to hand over in that sense. But it was a good experience of empowerment for the community.
Thank you. Any more questions from the floor?
Yeah, again, not so much of a question, but a comment around, even when we think about language about family and domestic violence, we talk about victims, and that comes with a whole set of parameters and paradigms about who we think that person is. What they are is a victim of someone's behaviour, but in fact show fabulous and tremendous strength to be able to survive in that environment. And we don't credit people with that dual language around, yes, victim by someone else's standards, but strength in the way they're operating, living in a limited space, often physically and emotionally and financially, and the tenacity that they show to get through each day. So it's about how do we describe it as the observer, and how do we hear how people describe themselves and what their skills are.
I think that sort of ties in as well to the question before as well about, the shiny stories that we don't hear, and there's still one woman killed a week in Australia from a former or a partner, ex-partner. And it's about having these conversations, but it's also having those conversations when we're out in public as well, and saying no to that power imbalance and no to those sexist jokes, because we know that it's usually a gendered issue. And it's about also recognising that it isn't just a one-off situation where you go to a support place and you get help and then you're on your merry way. It can have long-term, lifetime effects physically, mentally, and future relationships. So I think that needs to be a conversation that needs to happen more often. And I think it is happening more often, but I think people are still scared about it. And it's about people that are in this room that are all invested in being strength-based and trauma-informed, being strong enough and brave enough to have those conversations and say, gosh, that must have been really hard for you. And I can understand, it's ongoing. It doesn't always have to just stop at the one place.
Lelde, I think we cut off a video, and I think it's timely after this kind of conversation to, I guess, play that video. So we're going to just show that compilation video that's there.
Do I need to do something?
My financial abuse left me feeling very lost, very hurt, and very alone.
I was really dealing with low confidence. I felt subhuman.
I felt ashamed mostly about where I was and my life. Rather than being codependent, I needed to find my independence.
I knew I had to find somebody to help me. I just felt I couldn't do it on my own anymore.
I was ready to get my finances in order and regain financial stability.
So I did the right thing and I asked for help. Good Shepherd came along and saved the day and referred me to the Financial Independence Hub where, everything changed.
Financial Independence Hub reached out to some of the providers that I owed some money to, helped me get on some payment plans and helped me get my life back on track.
I ended up getting $1,300 ahead in my rent, and I was on top with my other bills.
The plan was negotiated together. It wasn't like, this is what you should do. It was, what do you think you should do and what are the options? I found my sense of self. I could achieve things on my own. I didn't need to depend on anyone anymore.
I can see, if I keep chipping away at it, that it is possible to live the life that I want to live.
Good Shepherd are so beautiful. They are non-judgmental. They will help you in every way possible.
So if you or anyone you know is been through some financial abuse, then search Financial Independence Hub because you deserve it.
So just a bit of context, we asked several previous participants in the FIH program if they would be interested in being a part of this video, and these 3 brave women put their hand up and said yes they would. So with several got back and forth with consent and making sure that they were comfortable, finally went live recently, and we're really proud of those videos and the participants and the journey that they've been on and where they've come to. So it's pretty exciting. We were also, our program was co-designed by people with a lived experience, and we're actually recruiting to a lived experience advisory partnership for the next stage of our program because we want to do more, and participants are telling us what more they want, and so we can only do that with people who have that experience.
Thank you. Any more questions? We still have a couple of minutes, I think.
Can I ask one, Lelde? Sorry.
Yes.
I have control over the mic, so you get my story. Listening to that and looking at the great creative work that's coming out and being done, I guess my question is, how do you bring your creative agencies and other agencies and all those other people that have to, I guess, understand the notion of customers experiencing vulnerability, strengths-based language, how do you bring them along that journey as well? Because they've obviously got lenses that are quite different from where you're coming from. So is there a challenge, and how do you resolve and how do you deal with that challenge?
They're invested, they're here. But yeah, I think it's about having those relationships, and I think the people themselves who are the creative side really being interested in the story, and we're constantly learning from each other, and I'm also learning from colleagues as we go along as well, and I'm learning from the women that were in the videos too. So I think it's just constantly being open to that conversation.
And when we did the shift at Red Cross, we used, because Red Cross was a bigger entity, we did use external designers, and we brought them in and had really good conversations with them. And some of the guidelines that Zane mentioned, we obviously shared them, and we sat with them, no, not that photo, yes, that photo, no, not that word, yes, that word. And some of them, the creatives, they like to challenge. I think some of them were like, oh, this is exciting. This is going to be a different way of fundraising that we could, embrace and, try and kind of work out how to crack as well. So some of them really jumped at the challenge.
Some didn't, and we got rid of them too.
I had a bit of an extreme example with the project that we worked on with Mike as well, and looking at a toolkit to prevent financial abuse in young adult relationships. So I brought the complete and utter nerdy academic side to things, and then had the creative team from Today Design and the Foundation for Young Australians, and I think you used their work on I noticed their name up on the multicultural thing. So we had to actually really learn to understand each other's language. So they came along on my journey in terms of all the things that I'd found, and it was actually one other person who'd read my thesis, which was full of stories from young people that I'd interviewed. But then I had to get stretched and be opened up to the uncertainty and the vagueness and the amorphous nature of creative kind of design and concept development, and go down actually that pathway to think more about the end user as opposed to my own ideas about what my research showed what needed to be done. And in fact, at the end of that process, what I thought was going to be the outcome was completely flipped on its head. So it wasn't about that dramatic this is what can happen if you get into these relationships. It was about, well, how do you ensure that you've got a positive, a financially healthy relationship in the first place? What are your money-based values? How do you work together in a relationship around that? And then kind of later on, these are some of the things to look out for, So it was really a way of trying to capture people into the issue rather than trying to either scare them away or use, I guess, a framework like financial abuse or domestic violence that they actually didn't even associate with because it wasn't part of their understanding of their worlds. So, yeah, it was the opposite. I'm here, with marketing people, I have a creative kind of bent already. I didn't have any of that, and it was a real challenge to go on that creative journey and for them to go on to that, use all that academic research to inform their creative processes as well. Yeah.
Thank you. I just speaking, I guess, from the government side that, we have found with creative agencies, there's not necessarily a lot of diversity in the staff that they have. I think that is improving. But for us, I think because we are in a position where there can be big tenders and requests, we've really started to put an emphasis of, how diverse is your organisation? What is your specialisation in inclusive communications? Do you have people with lived experience in some of the areas, cohorts we're trying to reach? And that will put you in a better position to win this work. And I think hopefully that will help in agencies prioritising doing more of that. Thanks, crossed. Speak with money.
Thank you. I think it's time for lunch now. We have a lunch break from 12:15 to 1 o'clock. And before we go to lunch, I would like to thank our panellists. Such great work, great presentations. Would you all join with me in thanking them?